Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and what a way to wrap up the 2024 NFL season for the San Francisco 49ers. They lose to the Arizona Cardinals 47-24, a complete and utter shellacking on the behalf of the Arizona Cardinals. It was kind of a surprisingly good game for 2.5 quarters. But outside of that last quarter, it was ugly down in the desert. There was some good things we'll get to, but otherwise, a pretty piss-poor day by the red and gold out there in Arizona. And many of you are thinking, look, finally, the year's over. 2025 is ahead of us. New horizons are ahead. We have one more game to discuss before we can dive into the offseason conversations and Brock Purdy's contract talks and what's going to happen at pick number 11 this year. Yes, that is correct. The San Francisco 49ers have secured, with their Week 18 loss against the Cardinals, the number 11 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. They also fall to 6-11 on the season, their worst record since 2020. And maybe even worse than all of those two things I already said, 1-5 against the NFC West this year. They were swept by the Los Angeles Rams. 2 games they could have very easily won. They were swept by the Cardinals. At least one of those games were winnable. And then the Seattle Seahawks they split with. This game was, let's be honest here. I told you I didn't care about it coming into it. It was a bunch of backups playing. You had George Kittle out there for one half. Fred Warner was gutting things out till the end. Nick Bosa was playing, but didn't do much. This was simply a, hey, get your backups some reps, see what the young guys can do kind of game for the San Francisco 49ers. And, man, I can tell you this. This is the first show we're doing, I believe, in 2025, and I'm very grateful for the fact that we can put this year behind us, because it was ugly, it was terrible, so many injuries, so many bad things. As you can see, the best thing that may have come out of this year was me getting an autographed Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle picture behind me from my parents. And here, this Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and Brock Purdy picture right here for Christmas. It's probably the best thing I got all year in regards to this team, but not a great game on really both sides of the football. The offense played much better in the first half than the defense did. The defense looked atrocious. When you talk about Nick Sorensen keeping his job, being retained or being fired this offseason, yikes. I'm not sure this is the game you want to put on tape. Not sure if this is the game you want to go out of your rookie season with. It was brutal. So many miscommunications, blown coverages, and I get it. No Diamador Lenore. Mustafa gets hurt. Hufanga gets hurt in the first half. They don't return in this game. I hope they're both okay. You don't have Dre Greenlaw. Again, I get it. There's reasons as to say. We had Rocky Sean out there. You had Travaris Ward had a bad year out there. You had Isaac Adams playing cornerback. Really, it felt like a Renardo Green show for a large part of the day, but it's one player of 11. It's not going to hold up very well. You had Tatum Bethune out there for the defense, who made one really good play on the weak side coverage via almost Trey McBride touchdown. He was step-by-step with him, and whether or not he was the sole reason, he was a part of the reason as to why they didn't score a touchdown on that drive, albeit looking back, doesn't really matter when you see the final box score. But as Fluffy Ninja says here in the YouTube comments, and if you can, like, share, and subscribe, reacting to Week 18 for the San Francisco 49ers, Fluffy says this: On to pick number 11 and a new season full of potential for our beloved Niners. Can you say hi to my wife, Yoli, listening for the first time? Thank you. Yoli, how's it going? Hope you had a great Christmas and a great New Year. And yes, Fluffy, thankfully we can put this year behind us. I am so thankful we can put this year behind us and move on. I think I speak for every Niner fan when I say this. Whew. Thankfully, it's over. Thank God we can move on with our lives. And while, yes, it's a wasted year, if you want to call it that, it's a lost year, 100% I agree with that. Thankfully, we can put 2024 behind us and move into 2025 for the better. That said, we do have to talk about this game itself. The defense didn't play great, 47 points, the most they've allowed all year. And if I'm not mistaken, like the most they've allowed probably since that Bills game in 2020, unless I'm wrong here, it feels like it's been a long time since a team almost scored 50 points against this defense. It feels like a long time. I am shocked it was the Cardinals of all teams without James Conner, but not a great day from Fred Warner, but again, broken ankle, last week of the season, whatever. Nick Bosa was nowhere to be found today for this defense. I was hoping, hey, Nick, go out there and get a few more sacks. Nope, not a chance. The Niners' pass rush was non-existent. If there was a game you point to and say, hey, you got to find some more edge rushers that can actually get to the quarterback and win 1v1, it is this game, and you have to get Nick Bosa some help. Leonard Floyd didn't do much, although to give Leonard Floyd credit, he played until the end. The effort was there all day. He didn't give up. He didn't quit. But a lot of my, takeaways of this game were on offense for this team. Obviously, Brock Purdy did not play. As Jim Everett the Great said, Jimmy G showed he's better than Brock Purdy today. If you didn't know, Jimmy Garoppolo did start for the Rams today. Did they win or lose today? I'm pretty sure they lost today, but let me check right now. What did the Rams do today? They lost 30-25 to the Seattle Seahawks. Well, that's all I can say there. I don't think Jimmy G's done anything in his career to prove he's better than Brock Purdy. That's just 3 years of Brock Purdy starting as a Niners quarterback. But a lot of my takeaways were the offense. Bobo says here it's all over for Dobbs. Failed at securing the number 2 quarterback job and a starting job next season like Sam Darnold. I don't think Joshua Dobbs was ever going to get a starting job next year like Sam Darnold, like Baker Mayfield got when he left Carolina or left the Rams later in the year once he got traded. He never really felt like a reclamation project for Kyle Shanahan. In fact, he feels like a better number 2 in this offense, and I'd be totally open for him to return next year to San Francisco, albeit I think Matt Mayoka said it's not going to happen, but I'd be okay with that. I think Joshua Dobbs today proved exactly who you want your backup quarterbacks to be. And maybe not exactly, but maybe showed you more in regards to what you want your backup quarterbacks to be. And I'll agree with you, Bobo, that Joshua Dobbs didn't do himself any favors in that second half. He had the one pick early, then he fumbled late and threw a pick late. You can argue that last interception was kind of off of Pearsall's hands on a bad throw, but then falls right into the lap of a defender where his hands on the ground, not even looking at the football, and it falls right into it. You're like, okay, like that's how this year has gone, whatever. But I don't think Joshua Dobbs inherently played poor in this game. Yes, the box score would tell you otherwise, but he had 43 attempts through the air today, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 8 carries, 17 yards. He had 1 touchdown. So he had 3 total touchdowns and 3 total takeaways. It's kind of who Joshua Dobbs has always been. And so I don't think he has failed to secure a number 2 quarterback job next year. I just think that the way he put himself or the way he played today is exactly the same situation he was coming into the year. Like, he came into this year as a high upside number 2, but a really low ceiling that could either win you a few big games and he can lose you a lot of big games with those turnovers that he has. And that's what happened today. This first half was really close. It was 20-17, and really it shouldn't have been 20 at all. They allowed a field goal with 16 points left in the first half. What's that about? Like, the defense was so bad today, and maybe there's you can pinpoint a reason to in the all-22 tape and stuff. I don't have that yet. Honestly, I don't even care enough to watch it after this game. I can care less with the way this team played today, but Joshua Dobbs, I thought Dobbs in that first half was accurate. He was precise. He was moving in the pocket. He was making plays with his legs. He was throwing receivers open. He was hitting open receivers. It was like, yes, that is a backup quarterback. That's a number 2 quarterback in the NFL with some high upside. And, take this and, what if this game meant something for San Francisco? What if this game was a win-in-your-in situation? Obviously, when you lose, 47-24, that's a big no-no. But in that first half, Joshua Dobbs did everything he could to lead San Francisco to victory. Now, I get it. Late in the game, things fall apart. You don't have Jauan Jennings for almost the entirety of the game. But I thought Joshua Dobbs looked fine. I'm not going to come down his road. He's a backup quarterback. He should have started in Green Bay earlier this year. I don't know why that didn't happen. It just makes no sense. They probably would have lost that game anyways, but it's like, see, he can do a little more. Yet the fan base was pushing back, why is Brandon Allen starting? And then certain people that cover the team were like, well, Brandon Allen makes more sense. And you're like, no, he doesn't. Brandon Allen is a far worse quarterback. Now, yes, the ceiling is lower, and maybe the floor is a little higher, but I'd rather see what Joshua Dobbs did today compared to what Brandon Allen can do. He hit Pearsall deep towards the left sideline, kind of floated it, a little underthrew it, but it was still there. He was precise, to Kittle over the middle a lot today. There was so much to like from Joshua Dobbs in that first half. Second half, though, it was like a whole different quarterback and a whole different story. It was like you were watching Trey Lance out there. You're like, oh my God, what the heck happened? I'm not talking about today as Trey Lance. I'm talking about rookie preseason, against the Cardinals, Trey Lance. Oh my God, what? No, he can't be playing out there. And it's no knock on Trey Lance, but still, he just looked lost for a lot of it. And, again, getting the ball knocked out, throwing a pick, it's just those are the plays you can't make. But to be fair, I didn't really want to win this game anyways. This game meant nothing to me. Maybe it meant some of the players to give those guys the respect they gutted it out. But the biggest takeaways today was Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. Jauan Jennings, who did not reach 1,000 yards on the season due to being called for back-to-back personal fouls on consecutive plays. It did seem like there was... Jauan was like, you know what, I'm bored. I'm going to go out there and cause some havoc, and I'm going to wreak some havoc on these defensive backs, because that's just who Jauan is. Jauan is someone that just wants to watch the world burn at times, and it's a great thing to have. It's a great mentality to have as if you're a receiver going to block a defensive back. And the first call where he tosses Starling Thomas, the fifth, to the ground, and that kind of creates a scrap and his helmet comes off, whatever, penalties, offset. The second one, though, if you go back and watch that play, Jennings does absolutely nothing after the play. They penalized him for the previous play. Had that previous personal foul not happened, Jauan would have not got flagged. But because he was already flagged once, they saw the physicality he was playing with, he was amped up, boom, on a play against Sean Murphy-Bunting where he did absolutely nothing wrong. It was a physical block. As soon as the play was over with, he stops. He's on his back help me. Murphy-Bunting did everything after the play. They both get ejected. And yes, Bobo, as you say here, they should give Jennings his bonus anyways. Yeah, and I think they will. He's 25 yards short, 975 yards this year. How do you not reward a player like that? And San Francisco has a history of, having doing right by their players. I always go back to the story. I think it was 2019, maybe it was 2020, where Richard Sherman was 20 snaps away from reaching an incentive mark, and they were like, just give it to him anyways. He's been great for us. I'm not going to be shocked if we learn that Jauan gets the money no matter what. Now, funny enough, he'll probably get fined for the penalties more than his actual incentive is. So it may not matter when it's all said and done, but ultimately, Jauan deserves the incentive. He's been great all year long for this team. He has been this team's receiver number 1 the majority of the year. And, without Deebo Samuel for some games this season, and really it's felt like no Deebo Samuel all year long with how bad he's played, it has been the Jauan Jennings and George Kittle show. And it really goes to show how much work they put in and what it means to be there in the offseason every single day. I was there this past training camp, this past OTAs. Jauan Jennings was there every single day. No days off. He was out there every single day getting reps with Brock Purdy and the other quarterbacks, and it shows. It shows. Now, I'm hoping that same thing can carry over for Ricky Pearsall, because Pearsall this year, obviously, he got shot in the chest. He lost the entire offseason program due to a shoulder injury that happened off the field. And you even had some people during the year, like in recent weeks, that were like, is Ricky Pearsall a bust? And it's like, why are we asking this question? Why are we asking, like what is going on? Like, the dude got shot in the chest. I get it. He's a first-round pick and a 31st overall pick, and maybe he wasn't the player you wanted them to take. Cooper DeJean was still there. Plenty of other players. Ladd McConkey was still there. I totally get that. We all have our certain guys we like and whatnot, and you can argue those guys fit this team better. I totally get that too, but...
The Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist, whether you're running, swimming, or sleeping. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. The Apple Watch Series 10, available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generations, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
The conversation around Pearsall hasn't been toxic, but it's been disappointing. Now, unfortunately, this fan base, not all of you, but some of you, you know who you are, tend to take things to the extreme continually. And there is like no grace rewarded to a player that literally had a bullet hole almost hit his heart. Like, hit him right in the chest. And it was like, nope, he stinks. He's a bust. He doesn't have 1,000 yards. You see Brian Thomas Jr., you see Ladd McConkey, and I think, and at least I'm hoping, that these last 2 weeks or so, we are like, fans are starting to come around. The Buccaneers game was kind of the first glimpse of this when he was pivotal in that final drive to win that football game. But the last 2 weeks, and I get it, they've lost the last 2 weeks, but this team has been relatively competitive against the Lions. And then today for the first half against the Cardinals, Pearsall has been tremendous. Like, in the last 2 games, Pearsall has 18 targets, 14 catches, 210 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. If you want to average things out, that's 9 targets a game, 7 catches per game, 105 yards per game, and 1 touchdown. That's really good. That's what you want to see as you exit the 2024 season for a player that didn't get the entire offseason, going into the offseason, going into hopefully is a full, complete training camp and OTAs in preseason for him. And it's like, yes, like we saw glimpses of what made the San Francisco 49ers fall in love with Pearsall at the end of the first round. And I'm hoping that, through my entire draft process stuff, you go back and listen and watch those videos and those podcasts, like you can see and hear that I'm like, this kid, like, if he can stay healthy, he fits this offense to a T, and we've seen the last 2 weeks. Like, yeah, like, these are Ayuk numbers. The way he played today was like Brandon Ayuk. The last 2 weeks have been Ayuk-like. You can see, like, what the Niners envisioned in Pearsall with Deebo and Kittle and Ayuk and Jennings. Like, this is what we're supposed to be having all year long next season. And you're hoping that if they can get Pearsall up to speed in the offseason, and this is what he's going to show for the majority of next year in 2025. You're hoping you can pair this with Kittle and Jennings still playing great football. Maybe Debo's revitalized again, or if he's even here. Then you get Brandon Ayuk back sometimes next year, whether it's late or early, who knows when it'll be. But it's like, this is receiver number one stuff. And if you can get this out of him, then my goodness. And look, it's not to say there still aren't mistakes. There certainly are. It's that even throughout the troubles he's gone through, like, don't forget, Malik Neighbors, Lab McConkey, all the guys you point to and say, wow, they had amazing rookie seasons, had OTAs, had training camp, didn't get shot in the chest, didn't miss the first 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks of the NFL season, and then were healthy all year long. Now, some of those guys have worse quarterbacking play and whatnot, but it's like, this is what you're going to see, hopefully. Is Pearsall being like this now? You can't expect 105 yards every single game. Well, you can expect he's a player that can change the game for you. Now, Calachito says here, it's amazing how you don't see press man coverage every play when Debo isn't in the game. Well, exactly. And you're hoping that if you can get Pearsall and Ayuk on the field together, it'll open things up for a player like Debo Samuel underneath, that he can utilize his power and his speed to then be this physical domineering force. Now, then you add in Christian McCaffrey back. You don't want to say health fixes everything, because I think San Francisco could still be in the playoffs despite the injuries they've had this year. But you can see the vision, and you can see a player like Pearsall, it's starting to click for him. And if it starts to click now, man, I'm not saying he's going to be this top 5 receiver, but you can see that there is greatness in Pearsall. And I get the Cardinals aren't a great defense, but if it clicks now, coming into next year, this past year was start, stop for him. He'll have a running start going in the next year, which will mean so much for him, because if they could pay Brock Purdy, get him locked up, if they choose to do so, he gets 3 months, 2 months of just him and Purdy on that practice field, gaining chemistry and getting things right. Already knowing the offense, knowing the ins and outs, where to be, where to not to be, how to help the offense out. It's really, really, really great to see Pearsall kind of pick up as the year ends in 2025. A really great way to end his season after how bad it started with the preseason injury in training camp and then getting shot early in the year. And yes, Calachito, I get it. Debo's washed. He's still got something left. He certainly showed it against the Lions and the Dolphins. You're just like, where is that all year? But I digress. Fluffy Ninja asks here, with the 11th overall pick, what do you think the team will do? Well, to be honest with you, Fluffy Ninja, I have not gone into any draft content yet. I haven't even looked at the draft just yet. I know this year's draft is not a great class for centers, so cross that off. My eyes and ears are kind of dragging me to the edge rusher position. I think 11 is a little too rich for a guard. Maybe they can trade back and get some more picks and give themselves room to maneuver. I'll tell you what they don't need. That's a receiver or a quarterback or a tight end. But that said, I don't know what their motto will be. Like what's the plan? Because last year it was, let's accumulate 2 receivers and a running back and let's get weapons. Is that going to be the same? I certainly hope not. We've talked about this year a lot, doing what the Chiefs did. The Chiefs lost against the Bucs in the Super Bowl 31-9. Got just annihilated by them. They went back to the drawing board, signed Joe Thuney, drafted Creed Humphrey in the 2nd round, then drafted Trey Smith in the 6th round. All 3 of those guys this year didn't give up a single sack all year long, had PFF pass blocking grades above 70, which is well above the average mark for offensive linemen. So I'm hoping, with what San Francisco can do this offseason, I'm hoping it's edge rusher 1st round, get back to the trenches, hoping it's not Solomon Thomas or Javon Kinlaw at 11, but and maybe it's a defensive tackle. You have to get back to the trenches on this team. Like, Ronaldo Green is phenomenal. He's a star. Green this year, he's broken up 12 passes. It's the most by a rookie since 2000 as a Niner. Like, it's been 24 years since his team has had this great of a rookie cornerback in San Francisco. Green's legit. You have Lenore, you have Mustafa. Whether it's Brown or Hufanga, you're figuring things out on the back end. You have Warner, you have Winters, maybe Greenlaw's back on the cheap deal. Who knows? But what's more important is you can help all those guys out, the other 7 guys out, by fixing the defensive line. The Cardinals' offensive line, albeit is better than it has been in previous years, have rookies all over the place, right? Have young players everywhere. Bosa couldn't get home. Collins couldn't get home. Floyd couldn't get home. Grosmonte, like, no sacks today. None. And a lot of that is due to not being able to win 1v1, and it's not being able to get pressure up the middle and force those guys to the outside while Bosa and Floyd eat up on the outside. So, whether it's an edge rusher or defensive tackle, I really think that it would behoove this front office to look at the trenches on the defensive side in that first round. But that is my not looking at the draft class as a whole just yet. Maybe that changes the next few months or so. The draft's in April, so we have 4 months to figure this thing out and kind of make a plan heading into the NFL draft this year. Calachipto says, going back to the quarterback conversation in regards to backups, what's everyone's obsession with Tanner Mordecai? I don't know. And I get there is, well, maybe I do know, but I get he's young. You want to see the young guys play. He's more mobile than Brandon Allen. Now, we have no idea what he looks like in practice during the season. Having seen him in training camp and OTAs, and a little bit during the preseason, obviously, he's fine. Like, he's there. He really feels like a journeyman that kind of bounces around from practice squad to practice squad every single year. I think a lot of the conversation stems from Larry Krueger in the preseason saying he reminds him of Brock Purdy. Now, I love Larry. He's a friend of mine. We used to work together. It's no knock on him, but it felt like a little bit trying to get ahead of the curve again. Then I was like, no. Having watched Mordecai, it's like, I don't think he's on that level, but again, all due respect to Larry and the guys over there on the Krug show, like, why do we need to see Mordecai? Like, you have Dobbs, you had Allen. Like, Mordecai was never going to play this year. And if we're being honest, like, really isn't good enough to play. Like, you could argue that he could have been cut. Like, I don't, like, of all the people they stashed, it was Mordecai because they knew, like, he's not going to pass through waivers. Nobody's going to pick him up. And usually when no one's picking up your practice squad quarterback, it usually means they're not very good or teams aren't that desperate. Now, maybe that's just me looking into things too much, but it just felt like Mordecai, like, he didn't do much in college. He's a 5th-year player in college, maybe a 6th-year player, actually. Like, he didn't do much in training. Like, he did nothing to make me say he deserves a shot. Never did. Fluffy Ninja says here, I'd like to see Justin Fields come in and be a backup. That'd be fun. I think Fields had a better winning percentage than Russell Wilson this year. I think Wilson was 6-5, and Fields was 4-2. Obviously, limitations to Fields' game, but he does win. He doesn't turn the ball over as much as he used to with Chicago. He does have one elite trait that can win you some games. And with the running game like this in San Francisco, I wouldn't be opposed to it. And you have a young quarterback like Fields in Shanahan's system. You talk about, like, reclamation projects, rejuvenating your career. It's a quarterback like Fields that makes a lot of sense. So I'm not against that. But also, don't forget, Trey Lance is a free agent this offseason, so you never know. You never know. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Kawachito says that Deebo Samuel sitting was weird to him today. Did someone give them a trade proposal? Maybe if you just plan on cutting him, getting him injured wouldn't matter. I don't think so. I think Deebo got hurt during the week or, like, tweaked something and was like, hey, I'll see you next year. kind of thing. I don't love that, but the same thing goes for Giannamador Lenore. He didn't play today because of injury, but I wouldn't look too much into that. One injury, though, that did suck was Isaac Guerendo getting hurt on the first, second drive of the game for San Francisco. Not ideal. Honestly, terrible. Terrible. If I can find the tweet, or if there's an update from Kyle Shanahan, here, let me see if I can bring it up really fast, and let's see if there's an update thus far. Because the way it looked like it was an ankle, it got bent backwards, and it was an ankle. Shanahan says here they'll get more tests on Monday. Looks like an MCL sprain. So that's not too serious. You have the offseason, whatever, move on. But it's I don't know, he'll get more tests tomorrow. You could have a mid-foot Linz Frank injury, which is what Jimmy Garoppolo had in 2021, that cost him the entire year, or cost him a lot of the year in 2022, I believe, actually. Sorry, excuse me. So thank God it's the offseason, I guess. That said, when McCaffrey goes down with two relatively serious injuries, Mason goes down the shoulder injury, which we'll see what happens to him this offseason. He is a restricted rights free agent, I believe, so they can match any offer he gets on a money sheet and retain him. Mitchell is a free agent, but he always is injured. Guerendo has been hurt all year long, preseason, training camp, all the way to now. Then you have Patrick Taylor Jr. So the Niners have literally 5 guys that cannot stay healthy for the whole year. So not ideal in regards to the running back situation, but we'll get more tomorrow from Kyle Shanahan. Bobo says here, what about signing a free agent center in the offseason instead? That goes back to the draft conversation we were having about what to do with the 11th overall pick this year. People forget that Jake Brendel's under contract until 2026. Now, what I mean by that is that I want him gone as bad as you do. I think he stinks. I think he sucks. He has called the wrong protections. He's looking back at quarterbacks I don't know what happened. No answers to how terrible he's been this year. That said, it feels more likely they are hoping that they can figure out the left guard position, whether it is Spencer Burford or Ben Barch or a draft pick. Maybe John Feliciano comes back and Pooney moves over. Well, we shall see what happens with that, although it's unlikely Feliciano does return this year. But maybe he wants to get back after the injury he had. And I think they want to have Nick Zakelj and Drake Nugent and Brendel fight for that center job. But I will tell you this. There is a very, very, very strong possibility we are sitting here with Jake Brendel starting at center next year. I hate that. I don't love that. But reading tea leaves and just seeing how the contracts are all set up, they cannot get out of that contract, at least for one more year. So I would not be shocked to see Brendel starting at center next year. Now, I'd want to get rid of him, but they just signed Matt Hennessy as well to a 2-year deal to play center, so maybe he's an option. He started for the Falcons in 2021. He was Alex Mack's heir apparent. Then went to Philadelphia, played some left guard, played some center, and when Kelsey, I think, was hurt for a game or two, but he didn't do much out there in Philadelphia. He's coming off an injury, so maybe that's an option for them. You know, that veteran center they love. Shanahan usually isn't one to draft a center, so I think it'll be a lot more. It'd be a lot more veteran options. Hennessy, Nugent, Zakelj, and Brendel, kind of that 4 kind of grouping we look at next year. I do want to talk about, in my notes here, talked about Pearsall, talked about Jauan Jennings. The Niners defense today was pretty bad. Kyle Juszczyk, a 36-yard open touchdown. Good for Juszczyk. Do you see what he walked in wearing today? His wife made a George Kittle jersey vest. Kittle wore the Juszczyk one. I was like, hey, last game of the year, do what you want. Looks pretty good. Obviously, Christian's very talented in her fashion adventures. But I also thought, I was watching the defense today, and I thought Fred Warner looked slow and tired, which I don't blame him for feeling that way or looking that way. He got carried by Trey McBride on one play, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Then D. Winters blew a coverage on a McBride, big chunk play. Warner got beat in the back of the end zone on the right side on a McBride touchdown. Trace Ward got burnt by Marvin Harrison Jr. for what seemed to be the game-sealing touchdown when they scored 40, and they scored 47. This is Brendel's contract via Calachipto saying if you cut him pre-June 1st, it's a $2 million cap hit, and it's a $1.5 million savings. That doesn't wow me. It doesn't move me. I think they're more likely to keep him. I get it. Like $1.5 million can get you 2 players. Maybe give you some practice squad players, fill out your roster. But I have a really, really, really strong feeling that they are going to hold on to him next year. Like, really hold on to him next year. This via Josina Anderson right now, though. Multiple high-level personnel folks around the league are talking about monitoring the Titans' GM job. If you don't know that, that is Rand Carthen, former Niners executive. He might get fired. Might as well bring him back to San Francisco. Kyle Juszczyk also today said he did consider the idea that today was his last game with the Niners, but he really, really hopes that that's not the case. He has 1 year left on his deal after taking a pay cut last offseason. He says he's still playing at a high level and will play elsewhere in 2025 if he does not return. They got to bring Juszczyk back, right? How do you not bring Juszczyk back? He means so much to the running game and what he's done, but it's the money. It's the money. If they're cutting Deebo Samuel and cutting Javon Hargrave, it's all about the money in regards to who they can keep and who they don't keep. Man. A lot of things are going to happen this offseason. I was writing an article today on theheavy.com about how do you fix the San Francisco 49ers. I was going through offensive line and defensive line, and I got to the end and I was like, I'm forgetting something. And then I looked back at my notes today, and I went, oh, the special teams unit is still terrible. If there was one unit where you can literally fire everybody involved, you can fire the kicker, you can fire the punter, you can fire the coordinator. It is special teams. Clean house. Jake Moody, 1 for 2 today. Missed a 47-yarder. This Niner special teams unit on punt coverage allowed DJ Dallas to run a counter run for 23 yards on a 4th down punt. I don't get it. But also I do get it because they're terrible. They're not good at all. And so it's understandable that they got to remake this thing. Like, people were talking about firing Nick Sorensen. Today wasn't his greatest outing as a coordinator, but, like, I can forgive a lot of the mistakes he's made. What I can't forgive is Brian Schneider. Like, Brian Schneider openly told the media Jake Moody had the perfect workout. Brian Schneider openly told Kyle Shanahan, Jake Moody's the guy. I'm sorry. You are essentially advocating for the quarterback of the special teams unit, and that player's a bust. If a head coach usually drafts a quarterback and they stink and they suck and they're a bust, they get canned. Brian Schneider, you advocated for your dude. You gotta go. Jake Moody will leave today, finishing 2024 with the second lowest field goal percentage in football, 70.5. Jake Moody barely is making over 69% of his field goals this year. I think he's made 24 of his 34 attempts. That's not including missed PATs. It's not including terrible kickoffs, bad onside kicks. It's not including missed tackles on kick. It's just it doesn't even include everything else that's wrong with him. It's just the basics of kicking. Jake Moody's the highest drafted kicker in the league today. 3rd round pick, pick 99, pick one, whatever he was in the 3rd round. And he's the 2nd worst kicker in football of the full-time guys. You gotta go. You got to go. Bad. I will say this, though, in regards to going back to the quarterback conversation, I'm hoping that today's performance doesn't begin Joshua Dobbs played pretty good for one half. Brock Purdy hasn't played that good since, Joshua Dobbs could start next year. It's like, no, don't do that. Hey, it's week 18. The year's over with. It's kind of a whimper to go out on. I do want to give the Niners credit, though, because they really did fight in that first half. The Niners really fought in that first half, opened my eyes, and I thought they were going to come out just put in a stinker, give up, give in, and they didn't. They looked pretty good for a half of play. Second half, more of attrition wears in, then you get your butt kicked. But, the box score, 47-24, to me, doesn't really dictate how this game went. You can just tell in that third quarter the wheels fell off, and it was like, here we go, But other than that, this has been your 2024 NFL season. The San Francisco 49ers finished 6-11. They are 1-5 in the NFC West this year. They get swept by the Rams and swept by the Cardinals, and they tuck their tails headed into one of the most pivotal off seasons under the Shanahan and Lynch regime. They have to re-sign Brock Purdy to a big contract, or not. They will, but maybe they don't. They will. They have to decide what to do with Deebo Samuel and Javon Hargrave. We'll debate that, I'm sure, all off season long. They have to make the right picks in the NFL draft. They have to rebuild the offensive line. You have Trent Williams. If he can stay healthy next year, the ankle's a ticking time bomb. You don't know what's happening at left guard. Maybe it's Ben Barch. Maybe it's Burford. Maybe it's somebody else. You have Jake Brendel. You don't want Jake Brendel. What are you going to do there? You have Pooney. He's a lock. McKivitz is fine. Whatever. He ain't the problem. Got to fix the interior. And on defense, well, you got Hargrave. What do? You have Bosa. He's great, but Collins was okay. Floyd was okay. You got to find the other dog next to Bosa. You want to be this vaunted, feared defense again. I'm looking at Pittsburgh, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. The dogs are up front. We need some more dogs in the kennel ready to pounce as soon as them gates open up. San Francisco has one dog, and his name is Nick Bosa, and that is it. Do you bring back Dre Greenlaw? What do you do there? I think they'll try. I think his price tag will be relatively low, but then Talanoa Hufanga, what do you do with him? Do you trust Jair Brown? Do you draft a new safety? I don't know what San Francisco is going to do. Then, of course, you have the bigger questions. What happens to Nick Sorensen? Do you fire your defensive coordinator 2 years in a row? I don't think it'll happen, but if Jeff Ulbricht's out there, maybe things change. Niner Media says, what's going on? Sterling, what's going on Niner Media? Welcome to the offseason. Yes, sir. Welcome to the offseason. It feels great. No football for the Niners next week. We're going to sit back, relax, and laugh at every other team that trash-talked us all year and then loses in the first round. I love that. Teams trash talk all year long. Oh, the Niners stink. They're so bad. Then they get their butts kicked and lose in heartbreaking fashion in the first round. And you're like, hey, at least when we go, we make it relatively competitive. We go all the way. We may lose when we get all the way, but at least we go deep. Y'all are first round exiters all the time. I love that. I love that. I love that. He thinks Hargrave is gone. I think it depends on the free agent market. The money to be saved, it's there, but pros and cons. I haven't looked into it too much just yet, but it's certainly an option. And he says Trent Williams may retire. Bobo adds Trent should retire, but he won't collect at least $30 million. I don't think you force the team to redo your contract and then retire after 1 year. But maybe the loss of his kid and his ankle are like, hey, I'm good. Never mind, call it a day. Which then kind of hurts San Francisco further of oh crap, we got to get a left tackle now. But you have money to go out there and sign somebody maybe this offseason. Bobo says that they're glad we lost today. We got the 11th overall pick. It certainly helps. It's the highest pick they've had that was theirs that they didn't trade for since 2021. Because they had 12 in 2020, traded back to 13. Then they had 12 in 2021, I believe, because it was Buckner. They traded Buckner away for 12, traded it back at 13 with the Buccaneers. They got worse. Yikes. We got Kinlaw. Ugh. Then the next year was the Lance trade up. So yeah, this is their pick, the highest one since 2020. So yeah, good time to need interior defensive linemen and edge rushers. They ain't got great centers this year. The receiver class ain't as good. It kind of pays to have a top 10 pick this year, which they're one outside of. So we shall see when the time comes what San Francisco does. But it does suck. The team has lost 7 of 8 games to end their season. Yeah, like, I will say this, though. Not this game, but the Lions game to me, like, gave me hope that next year will be so different. Like, this team was still banged up. They were broken, but they gave a valiant effort against what has been the best team in the NFC, not named the Vikings, and arguably the best team in football, not named the Chiefs, all year long. And I get they're banged up too, but it's like, that game was like, okay, like San Francisco still has amazing football ahead of them. Unfortunately, it's capped off by a 47-24 loss to end their season, but time will tell. I know we have a Vikings and Lions game to watch right now on Sunday Night Football, so I'm going to dip out, but welcome to the 2025 NFL offseason. Thank you so much for watching every preview and reaction podcast and show this year. Thank you so much. It was a record year for the show. Hit over 1,000 subs on YouTube. Hoping to reach even more in 2025. Hope you had a great new year. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas. If you want to follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. Both those places are going to have tons of draft content this year alongside this very YouTube channel. We're talking breakdowns, top 10s, scouting reports, all of that for you, and plenty of mock drafts to get those wheels spinning as we embark on the draft season leading into free agency in the next few months or so. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. The NFL season may be over for the Niners, but MLB season's around the corner, NBA season's in full swing, and the playoffs are here in the NFL. If you are like, look, Niners stink, but I still want to watch some live football, go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERS. ACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Stay tuned for Black Monday tomorrow when coaches get fired everywhere. As Bubba says here, somebody better get fired tomorrow. I tell you, it won't be Kyle Shanahan, but it might be Nick Sorensen, and it very well should be Brian Schneider. Gerard Mayo already got fired today, so we'll see who else is on the chopping block on Black Monday tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and for the last time in the 2024 NFL regular season, my name is Sterling Bennett, asking you to... Sorry, there's some comments here on the chat cracking me up at the very top, but don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and for the last time in the 2024 regular season, my name is Sterling Bennett, and until next time, stay faithful.